Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Blue Knight 7, coming back after a brief hiatus for episode 40, which I couldn't help but title, I Made a Big Decision and Mistakes Were Made, which is part of the reason why it's been over a week since you've heard from me. But I did want to talk. This is sort of a more of a PC-centric episode, and not even so much a gaming episode, but it's partly PC gaming, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I wanted to do something for a while, and I spent a lot of time researching this, trying to make decisions about whether it's worth doing, whether it was worth going in this direction or that direction. Would this work after I did it? And, sort of is a juice worth the squeeze type of a question that I've been trying to answer for myself. And I've spent the last week or so trying to do that. And, we'll get into it a little bit, and I hope it's a little entertaining. But before we get too far in, special shout out to Cole Ike for checking on me. Special shout out to all the PC gamers out there, because I do think this will be something you want to watch. It'll be a little different than some of the other things you might find. And if you've been liking my content, or you like this episode today when it's over, or still like me when this is over, please like, subscribe, follow, comment, whatever. I am trying to grow the channel, so I'll quit beating around the bush. Basically, I've been sick of Windows 11 for a long time. Just kind of sick of what Microsoft as a company has been doing for a long time. And I really have felt a strong desire to disconnect from Microsoft specifically. Now, I'm not an Xbox gamer, I'm not really tied closely to that ecosystem. I have downloaded Microsoft Studio games to play on my gaming PC. But that's kind of my relationship with Xbox per se, other than wanting to comment on them every now and then, which I guess everybody on the internet likes to do. But I have always been like a Windows diehard. Even back in college when I was in the art department. Yeah, there you go. There's something about my personal life. I'm actually an art major. Double major, but with something else. But yeah, the one I really was an art student, I feel like, looking back. But while everybody was using their Macs and telling me I needed to be doing that for Photoshop, and why in the world am I using Windows? Yeah, I doubled down, did Windows. I used the Adobe stuff, used Photoshop, different things, but I was always the Microsoft person. But anywho, recent years, I've just kind of got fed up. Windows 11, I haven't had all the crashes and errors a lot of people complain about. I have had the constantly updating stuff that people complain about. And also, I've just been kind of frustrated with how they're selling you an OS. Even after you buy the OS, you have to deal with all the telemetry nonsense they do now, the telemetry. And now I've really got frustrated with them shoving Copilot AI into every little aspect of their product line, including Windows. I did see a report recent that they're going to try to back off of Windows and make it more about the other apps. Okay, great. I don't really trust that. in case you need to hear about my opinions on AI, I think it has its place. It has some good things. I'll admit to using it some. I think everybody has at this point to some extent. Where I use it the most would be, anytime you do a search engine search and it summarizes it for you and kind of puts it in front of your face to where you have to read it. Though I did find Google Gemini AI and DuckDuckGo Duck AI for helpful for what I've been doing. But I've just really felt this strong desire to disconnect from Microsoft. And I guess what really broke the camel's back for me, as silly as it may sound, there was two things. One was finding out that my basic MS Paint program and the Paint program as it is now on Windows, let me say it that way, and Notepad now has AI. Yes, you could switch it off. I did. But there is a switch in the Notepad settings now for Copilot. Frickin' Notepad. So that kind of it angered me. Maybe I shouldn't have felt it, but I felt some anger over that. Such a pure, simple program I use all the time. Now it's got the AI injected. Anyway. Also, I kind of got away from Adobe in recent years, and though I've used a lot of open source stuff in the past, like GIMP, just to get things done because I couldn't afford Photoshop yet and hadn't learned to pirate Photoshop yet. I got to using Corel Draw Graphics Suite a lot. And in particular, not really Corel Draw so much as Corel Photo Paint, just to do some the stuff I do, just to get it done. And I found it to be a great Photoshop alternative. Yes, you had to buy it, but I thought it was pretty good quality, though I thought the updates, it wasn't really... I kind of felt like I was getting the same program even if I waited 2 to 3 years to upgrade it, if that makes sense. And I kept watching to see what would happen with Corel Draw Graphics Suite this year. And basically all I see for new features is AI integration. And I realize Corel's not Microsoft, but I'm just telling you what kind of broke the camel's back. So I'm just looking at this as a bunch of closed source stuff that I actually used and like to use. Just want to keep throwing AI in my face. And I realize that we're in an age now where you're not going to get away from it, and either you learn to master it or not. But I am one of those people that thinks the corporations are trying to work us to where if you don't own anything and you will be happy. You will use their AI products. You will use simple hardware that doesn't have much local compute power just to access their cloud AI. And you will rent that hardware and be happy. I would like to resist that in every way possible. And I do believe Microsoft is going to be one of its agents of that, along with Amazon, probably. Along with maybe NVIDIA. Not trying to go full conspiracy theorist, but my whole point is there's these trends that I just don't like. And it's kind of gotten to the point where even though I built a Windows 11 gaming PC, I can't help but feel like I don't completely own my machine anymore. There's just too many big brothers and phoning home and things like that. And yes, I've run Chris Titus utility, Windows utility, different things to switch it off. go through the settings manually, switch it off. I've even done administrator policies to keep it from using Copilot. But you shouldn't have to constantly do this stuff or see if there's a better way to do that stuff and to enjoy your machine, So, that's been my rant about Microsoft Windows. Also, I get the whole Windows 11 actually hinders your performance, and there's a lot of people that never upgraded from 10 because of that. But my whole point is, why am I supporting stuff that's going in those directions? I know I'm not the only one that's not happy, So what I did, I feel like I've spent a long time without just saying the word, but I'll say the word. I converted my PC over to Linux. I am now broadcasting from a Linux machine. So that was the big decision. I spent weeks before this kind of researching what to do, what distribution, what problems I might run into, because I honest to God, tried to be as prepared as I could be. And I think I do have myself in a good place now, but it was kind of a loop for a bit, and it was a learning curve. And I'm still in the middle of the learning curve. There's a lot I don't know, and a lot where I admit I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But I am trying to make this work. As far as distributions go, you hear all this talk about Linux distros. I went with Fedora. And I had a specific chain of thought that got me there. But if you look around, and you can get on YouTube and you can find like people who switch to Linux a dime a dozen these days, it seems like, and they're talking about distros a lot, and they're talking about this or that, their experience. But Bazite came up a lot, CachyOS came up a lot, Nobara came up a lot for me. And for those who don't know, it's like there isn't one Linux thing people download and everybody uses. Linux is just a kernel, like the command line kernel. And then you you usually just find a distribution that has that kernel or their version of it, plus the extra software to make it feel more like a Windows or more like a Mac OS or more like whatever. And they can be wildly different. Bazite, CachyOS, Nobara are kind of popular right now for gaming distributions, but there's smaller groups of people maintaining those. They can feel like flavor of the week sometimes, as far as who's talking about them, who's saying do this or that. There's others too that's kind of rose to popularity and maybe fell back down some, like Garuda, I think, or you get the idea. SteamOS has probably become the most well-known at this point because of the Steam Deck. But it wasn't, and that's probably would have been my first choice when I started researching, but I didn't go there because SteamOS isn't really there yet as a actual PC desktop OS replacement. It's very good for the Steam Deck, of course. If you were building a little AMD hardware-based computer box to connect to your TV in the living room, SteamOS would be good. Bazite would be excellent for that as well, by the way, from what I can tell. But if you go beyond the whole try to make a Steam box like console for your TV, SteamOS isn't really a good answer right now. It might be later. It might be a great answer later. Because Valve it seems they are clearly working in that direction, like they would like to be a Windows alternative. But SteamOS to me just didn't answer me for now. And the other gaming distributions, they probably would have made my life a lot easier if I just went for one of those. But I went for Fedora because Bazite, Nobara are based on Fedora. Fedora is backed by Red Hat, which is like the commercial version of Linux, if you will. And Linus Torvalds, the more or less inventor of Linux, uses Fedora so he has up-to-date software as he works. Like I say, I've spent time reading on this. And Fedora also seemed to be very good for drivers. Like I thought I would have less trouble building a Fedora system than some of the others. Now, for perspective, hardware-wise, I'm running an Intel 12700 processor, an RTX 3080, 32 gig of DDR4 RAM. The unique part of my PC maybe is the fact that I have 4 different hard drives. I got 2 NVMe's. I got a 512 gig boot drive. I have a 1 terabyte NVMe gaming drive. That's where all my Steam stuff went. And I had 2 physical HDD drives, 3 terabytes, for storage, and they're not full, chock to the brim by any means. But I've been using them to store like work files and things I do. So 4 drives. This will be important later. But, my main concern with that hardware, from what I could look up, was just how big of a headache is it going to be to get a NVIDIA card to work on Linux, because at the moment they don't play the best. Apparently AMD is better. But Fedora does have some basic drivers that doesn't break your machine when you first boot it up. And then it's not that hard to download the NVIDIA proprietary drivers. I just searched and figured it out. So that part in itself on paper isn't hard. Downloading software for this thing isn't hard. I'll tell you what was hard in a minute, but I will say, just to set it up, just the basic idea of setting it up, downloading the drivers you need, it was not near as hard as some people would make you think. For me, it wasn't. And I've been pleased so far with the performance and how it runs. I'll try to show a little more in a minute. But of course, I write mistakes were made. Let's talk about the whole experience now. So I I made the writable media on a USB drive, booted it. Kind of got a chance to test it out. I'd recommend anybody that does this to do that. And also, I should note, there's 2 GUIs you can get with most Linux distros. Fedora offers both in its spins. But I think most people use one with Fedora called GNOME. I went for KDE Plasma, which seems to be more of the gamer distribution. And also, it just more closely resembles a Windows interface for the GUI. To me, that was important. But I also found that KDE, the group or the community that makes Plasma, includes a pretty good complementary suite of apps that replace the ones you kind of take for granted in Windows. Like, they have a notepad. They have a basic paint program. They have an email program. They have a sort of a email calendar to do personal information organizer program that rivals Outlook and Contact with a K. It has a media player, though. To be honest, I like VLC media player better still yet. And it also comes from the get-go with LibreOffice, which is open source program that does what Microsoft Office does, let's say. And you get the theme here, but basically that is Fedora with KDE Plasma. That's exactly what I got. And I tested that on the boot drive, on the USB drive. That went okay. I did some preparation that I knew I was supposed to do, like make sure secure boot was switched off, because apparently that can, in the BIOS, because apparently that can cause a big problem later if it was switched on. And I installed it, and installation was pretty smooth with using their Fedora's installation wizard that you kind of just access from that testing on the boot drive. You can just tell it you want to reboot and install Fedora. I know some people do dual boots and things just to hedge their bets on whether they can't stand it or not. I just kind of jumped in the pool and went all in. Formatted the boot drive. Like I say, all my files were on other drives. Formatted the boot drive. Installed Fedora. Bye-bye Windows. I did keep the product key in case I thought, man, I really screwed up. But I went for formatting, replacing it all in. Now, I don't know exactly what I did wrong, but as I tried to install those NVIDIA drivers, I don't know if I think I did something out of order, and it didn't completely install well, because all last week I was basically cussing, trying to figure out why my screen was randomly blacking out for about 3 seconds and then kicking back on. Didn't matter what I was doing, what was going on. It seemed to definitely trigger whenever I was first opening a program. Firefox, I don't care. It comes with Firefox by default. Firefox, whatever. It would black out for 3 seconds, then come up, and then even when I wasn't starting a program, you might at a random time get like a 3-second blackout. Did not matter what I was doing. And I'd try to look up all the fixes. Yeah, I did use some AI after I ranted about AI because I do think it's good for some things like summarizing search results, save us some time looking stuff up. I do think that's the one good thing AI has done. And to help me figure out which source I need to really go to for information, that kind of thing. But, I would try all these different fixes, but I never could cure the blackout problem. So I finally got frustrated and did something I might have done in Windows, but I was doing it now for Linux. I guess you never get away from this. Restore the OS. Let's just format again and put it back in again. Boot it up again. Boot up the jump drive again. Let's get Fedora back on. Start over. Be real careful about my timing of the installation, because I think what really happened was there was a moment where I should have waited 5 or 10 minutes before I did anything else, and I didn't. And also, I haven't talked about in general, if you are skittish about using a command line in a terminal on Windows, or a command line in general, yeah, Linux is definitely not going to be for you. I didn't know if it would be for me, because the way I grew up with PCs, it was always like Windows. I learned, first used Windows 95. My first real computer at home was Windows 98. XP 7, 10, 8, 8.1, 10. That was my real upbringing with a computer. Yes, I've used DOS computers and things like that at school, back when I was at school, but to actually own a computer and spend time with it and learn to use one properly, I would say Windows 95 up. So for me, command lines are like this ancient thing that was more ancient than me. But if you want to get things done in Linux, you use the command line. I've learned that very quickly. And I've kind of started to learn some real basic routine things you might do already. But generally speaking, if you want to install something weird or tinker or do anything, you use that command line. And yeah, Linux is definitely for tinkerers. Fedora has a very tinkerer spirit about it. Bazite, some of the others would probably be better if that's not for you. But for me, I wanted to learn. This was something. It was also just a project where I just wanted to learn. Like, what is this about? What is this like? Is this worth it? And so that was kind of my experience. I had this big driver problem I was trying to fix, and I reinstalled in Fedora, and it's worked since. This session where I'm recording is probably the longest session I've had to test the blackout thing since I reinstalled, and I haven't had any. So I'm going to say, yeah, this is working so far. I think I might actually have a working build this time. And yeah, it's been good. As far as just the basics now for stability, let's say. Though I think all along it was more of a driver error that got fixed, and now we're good. Yeah. So, I realize this is a gaming channel, and y'all are probably asking me, well, is it that good for gaming? I haven't had a whole lot of time to really answer that question yet, because I've just been trying to keep my screen from blacking out. But I can tell you that I have played some Overwatch on Steam. As you may have figured out over the last few episodes, I've been playing a lot of Overwatch. And it played seamless. I mean, as screen blackouts aside, it played real well. Now, I was going to try to test it a little bit after I record this just to see if it holds up even under those circumstances. But it was kind of weird. I don't think it blacked out as much while I was playing a game. But I was able to win matches, win matches, whatever. And graphics, and I didn't really have like a frame rate counter or anything. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't know what. Like, I don't have it in my head for FPS I was getting on Overwatch on my Windows PC. I'm not hardware unboxed. I don't pretend to be. Not Gamers Nexus, any of that. But I do know just to play the game and try to have fun with it, I didn't notice any technical issue whatsoever. Everything controlled right, mouse, keyboard controlled right. I was using settings I normally used. I didn't notice any frame rate problems at all. Overwatch isn't a particularly demanding game in 2026, to be fair. But, it's one of them where if you were having frame rate problems, you're going to cuss. And because there's people out there that are fast and they'll eat you for lunch if you're just trying to fight with your machine while you're playing, And it was good. Everything worked. Great. Seamless. Perfect. I was going to take time to try some other games. I was hoping to have that under my belt before I got here, but it just got to where I was taking so long to do anything. But I'm going to try to see pretty soon how Cyberpunk runs on this, because to me that's probably my most demanding game on the system right now. And that's the one where I've actually run benchmark tests on my Windows PC just to get my settings using the game's internal benchmark thing in its settings system. And I'm going to see what it does. I was, with ray tracing on with my rig, I was able to tweak the settings, like not use the psycho settings or the most demanding configuration in the settings. I would dial this or that unimportant thing down and use DLSS. You get the idea. Not frame gen, because that's not really a RTX 3000 series feature. But you know, I dial, and I'm not really big on frame gen anyway. But been fighting a little bit of cough too, sorry. But I know with the settings where I had them, it was about 58, 59 FPS. I never quite hit 60, but 58, 59 FPS ray tracing on. So I'm going to try to see replicate that and see what this system does. On one hand, Fedora does a lot. Well, Linux in general is less system load than Windows 11. So I'm expecting help. But on the other hand, there is sort of an NVIDIA tax with Linux right now, as I understand, where my 3080 probably isn't running as well as it did on Windows because it has less synergy with Linux, let's say. Like, arguably, the best thing I could do hardware-wise going forward would be at least get like a 9070 RX 9070 AMD card, maybe, just to get a little more synergy with the Linux kernel. So we'll see, because AMD just has better Linux drivers. So we'll see. I want to see how it hits, how close to 50, let's say 58 it hits. If it goes over 60, that I'm going to call that a certified improvement. That would be very non-scientific, but still, that would be an improvement to me. So we'll see about that, and just we'll try to show this here, sort of a behind the curtain moment. But here's the desktop for it, and this just goes to what I was saying. This is KDE Plasma. I have not. It's very customizable, but I have done no real customization on what you see here. This is pretty much what I got when I restored the system, booted up. And I've already installed some programs that I had set up and worked with. They call it the same idea as what Windows has been doing since 7, but the taskbar. And this is what it uses for a hardware monitor. It's called System Monitor here. But you see, I'm just running OBS and this monitor, CPU about a little over 2%, GPU running at 33% load right now. Memory, just that's about the lowest I've seen. 4 out of 32 or 31.2. So pretty solid. The other thing I would point out is this is about all you see for background services and applications. Windows, it's a mile long. Here it's nothing. So yeah, it's just kind of, you can kind of see it's been running just real low since I booted up. About all I've done is booted up, re-download OBS after I had to restore, and configure OBS for what I'm doing right now. So that's, to me, this has been probably the most efficient I've ever had this machine since I built it in 2022. And I was running Windows 11 then. Applications, there's sort of a favorites section you can use. I've added a few in here for me. And then you have category. You can do all applications as a list. And then I have a lot of news because I haven't tried them out yet. There's a lot of software on here I don't know much about, and I'll be trying to learn. Just to point out here, and you can kind of see this in the software, but there's actually some games for Linux I've never heard of. But you have different sections you can do where it divides your apps up into something that makes sense for what you're doing. Yeah, here's some of the games. This is what I have on here that's not really Steam. And a couple of them I downloaded from the Discover app. I'll show you in a minute. But I wanted to take this as an excuse because I haven't even hit it. This has Solitaire. I know this is not anything anybody cares about probably, but it's Solitaire. But what gets me is that it doesn't ask for a Microsoft account. It doesn't ask for any of that stupid extra online stuff. It's just a local compute. Let's play Solitaire like we did back in '95. You know, that's what the big deal is to me with this. It really is, you know. And I guess I'm going to figure out how to play Solitaire again because the mouse clicks weren't doing quite like I thought they would. But anywho, here's the console I keep talking about. And yeah, it'll look like a hacker if you keep going. Just asking it to run a round of upgrades, it just feels like a hacker at work. And the other important, you got a file manager. It's called Dolphin. It comes with Firefox by default. Here they have Kwrite, which is sort of the Notepad equivalent. You can open file, new file. I think it's configured more for, say, a coder, which I'm not. But my point is, it has this stuff, and it doesn't have all the always connected online stuff shoved in your face. It doesn't always have the AI stuff shoved in your face. Now, if you need a program, you use Discover, which is kind of like a app store in the way it works. But, you know, you can go through here and hit different categories or search or look at them all, and there's a lot. But, you know, the general theme I've found with this is it's basically open source. Not all of it's perfect. Not all of it is what you want perfectly, you know. But you can find some pretty cool stuff if you come here with an open mind. Like, I also use Corel Painter a lot. They have Krita, which I've heard a lot about even before this. So I'm going to try to learn Krita. The GIMP, yeah, I've used the GIMP before. I never hated the GIMP. Seems to be a lot better than it used to be from when I tried it. So yeah, I'm going to work with it a little for things I do. I'm probably going to stick with Firefox for now. I've never been really committed to browsers, and I've tried different ones. I've never used Chromium per se, but I know it's Chrome. Blender, I've worked with Blender. Might work with it a little more. So, you know, there's stuff to use. Video editing seems to be a major thing where it's not maybe the one thing Windows has over Linux right now. But one of the better programs seems to be KDE and Live. And of course, I got OBS here. And but there's a lot of games, and I don't think they're elaborate or anything to get super excited about. Uh, I may do some content where I just try them out for people just to put them out in the world. But you got Super Tux Kart. I guess it's Mario Kart with penguins. I don't know what all to expect out of this, and maybe not a lot. It's 12.4 megabyte apparently. But I don't know. We may do that for something silly. And that's mostly what I wanted to show with this. But and I'll call this sort of a channel update section where I say, and yeah, it's been a long episode. Hope everybody enjoyed me just rambling about this. But rest assured, I don't intend to become one of those whose whole online personality is, I switched to Linux and you should too. I'm not going to do that. What I'm finding so far, and I don't think I'm ready to even say fully how I feel about this, but what I feel about it so far is, yes, it's good. No, it's not perfect. Don't expect it to be perfect. No, it's not for everybody. That's kind of where I'm going with this. But I do think the gaming part of my experience was probably the most easy to get into part, which is what most people complained about Linux for years. And everybody's now singing its praises and saying we're going to be having the year of the Linux desktop. I'm not quite there yet, but I admit it's better than I thought. So far, overall, now that I got my drivers fixed. So, I'm probably going to chime in every now and then. I'm going to be talking about PC gaming in general because I always meant to and I still am. But, you might hear me chime in every now and then and say, well, here's my Linux experience on this. But I'm not going to try to be one of those who build their whole channel around it. Because that's never what I meant to do anyway. But I do hope this makes me enjoy using my computer a little more again. And I hope it just makes me, helps me grow my skills, let's say, as a PC power user. And that's kind of where I'm going with this. I do have a Windows 11 laptop for backup if anything ever goes wrong, which helps me a little bit. I've had my printer running on this. It's more plug and play than you think. Just plug in my microphone, it works, that kind of thing. So, I may chime in and say this or that when I think there's something real important to talk about, but I'm trying not to make this the forefront. This was kind of my episode where I really tried to make a big deal about the fact I switched to Linux, if you will. So, that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this. Feel free to comment below if you have a question about it and just an opinion. I'd like to see it. If you have a question, I'll try to answer it. I'm not an expert by any means, but hope you enjoyed this. I will probably come back a few days with maybe another episode where I just talk about how performance has been in general, and I'll be talking about other topics as well as I go. But please like, comment, subscribe, share, whatever you want to do. I'm trying to be like giving you my honest view and not just trying to put this out here for clicks. And hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing it with me. Bye.